these brand commandments I want to jump into, bro, to me, from what I've seen of them so far, they seem like the answer to not only taking back our culture, but taking back your personal brand when we start looking at brothers who are out here getting it, whether you in sports, whether you in entertainment, or whatever it might be. These seem to be the solution. Y'all keep chopping it up, man. I'm pull this thing up.
We're looking at, I mean, to me, from a commandment and just branding in general, it's about developing partnerships. So it's not a one-way sort of conversation and you're playing off their agenda. You come with a point of view as it relates to what you stand for, the community, your voice, and all these sort of dynamics. So it's a marriage versus, I'm gonna just give you the bag. The problem now with NIL in general are the parents and the kids, all they're looking at is the bag versus taking time to sit back and planning a little bit. How do I want to change the world? What do I want to do after basketball? What's important to me? So that when you step at those brands, you're able to have those conversations as it relates to this agenda, and it's your playbook. And not that you won't change your offense or from a gene perspective, your defense, but at least you're going in with strategy. You're playing chess, not checkers, and you're able to evolve that as you sort of move on.
Man, so let's get into it then, man, because this seems tailor-built, man, for the young athlete that's out there, man, might have the buzz. I kind of hate what happened to the young boy, Imani Bates, out there in Memphis. He seemed like he was the next best one. But, and the illest thing left, I don't know if you remember, man, you remember as you were writing that Marcus Liberty book, which is coming, one of the illest things Liv said, and y'all know the Marcus Liberty story, man, can't miss guy, one of the coldest to ever do it, coming out of Chicago, went to U of I, they made him play center. He should have been at Syracuse playing next to Billy O. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And Derek Coleman. It was written, it was prophecy. Adults came in and changed it, and he didn't hit where he probably should have. And I asked him, I said, Liv, what would you tell a 17-year-old now that's a cannot miss prospect, who's on his way to protect himself from what happened to you with adults being able to come in and take over your situation, profit off you, and leave you holding the bag? He said, I tell him to take care of your marketing. Make sure your marketing stuff is tight. Because once you have that and you control that, they can no longer control you. Now, I think for what you guys are building, athletes are able to do it. So let's get into it, Drew. I'm going to
So the first one is purpose, but we can click through these slides. We've gone through a lot of this. I do. So why is this vital? And before we sort of completely into this, the first thing I want to say is that, and we'll go on to start early and being able to get after this, but this does not mean you're going to the pros. You should manage your brand regardless. This setup will help you for your career post-ball. You know what I mean? It almost serves as sort of a guide stick. So many folks hear branding and, they think just the bad versus it's starting to set up your narrative, your purpose, and we'll get into all those dynamics. But looking at the dynamics of why building your brand, because everybody's a brand. Even if you're a student, you have a brand and should be taking this approach. Obviously, the athletes are more the forefront of the student body, but all should get after it. First thing is just a greater mindset. It extends your value, authentication, life after sports and, displaying leadership skills, influence. Even though many may not want to be, you're a hero, you're a role model. The next one is vital. Crisis management. Look at Will Smith. If his brand wasn't on point, imagine what he would be going through right now with the ordeal that went after the academies the other night. He's going through a lot, but imagine if his brand was wiggly. The dynamics, it's a debate. It would even be a debate. The reason it's a debate is because it's Will and Jada, Will obviously is the one that sort of had the actions, but if your brand is solid, it happens now. The police comb social media, looking at criminals to be able to, judge them. They bring that into court. They monitor that. Next point is partnerships and product, which we talked about. Other things, with power comes responsibility. And sort of it goes into the last one. You represent the name on the front and the back of your jersey. So your family name, which extends into your community, as well as your school, all that stuff plays into it. So this applies to everybody. Everybody is a brand. What are you doing with it? And most of us don't do much with it. You know, I cringe when I hear folks like, I don't touch my parents on social media, and they're shutting it down. But other folks that don't. If you don't have social media and have a voice, you do not exist. Mm-hmm. But we keep talking about this brand versus marketing. I think this is a good time. We should play the video, Jav, and then we can talk about this sort of juice versus sauce and brand versus marketing.
All right. Hold on one second, brothers, real quick. Get this up for you.
I'm kind of checking myself out, man, kind of post-COVID, man. I'm getting a little slow, getting a little nice.
Can y'all see it, brothers?
Yes.
All right.
It's floating down, but once you turn it.
How long does barbecue sauce last in your juice is temporary. You know, anyone can obtain the juice or something. I mean, you could say that just because you got a nice car, so I'm like, oh man, you got the juice. You know, it's something that kind of comes and goes. The sauce is forever. You buy you a Simply Lemonade. How long is that gonna last in your fridge? A couple days maybe. Yeah. That's the juice. How long does barbecue sauce last in your fridge? A while. That's the sauce, man. It sticks around. It's thick. It's hard to move. I'm telling you. What's the difference?
This is some real shit.
So you get it, Jack?
Juice.
Yeah, I like that.
So what we're talking about, marketing is the juice. It's getting the exposure. Some people pay advertising with it. You may score 8 touchdowns. You have the juice. That's self-marketing. As soon as people are going to run to your social media and see what you're talking about. But when they arrive there and you don't have no sauce, you're not telling no story, you don't have no purpose, you lose the moment. And that's what, from a branding standpoint, that's why we emphasize the branding. Marketing just gets you exposure. Branding, you tell your story. That's the soul. And that's what we sort of want to emphasize. And with this, kid may never become, that athlete, but why not prepare? This is walking cool. When you're building your brand, you're walking cool when nobody's looking. If you just wait till you got the juice or wait till you got the exposure. And the other thing is you don't have to be the best player on the team for your brand to take off. There's a backup quarterback, Chase, I'm blanking on his last name, out of UCLA right now. He's killing it in IL and he don't even start. You can build your brand and set yourself up to be a politician, to work on TV, to open up a barbershop, to tap into the alums for opportunities. I know Gene and I regret that. I wish I could go back, because once the crowds are gone and you're not moving them anymore, you become a non-entity. It's easier not to take your call.
To that point, understanding, moving, preparing before you're hot. So when you're hot, you're already there. You're already ready. And it's taking advantage of those opportunities as they present themselves. I mean, if the environment would have been conducive to more transactions, more time spent with administration, Georgetown alumni, those first 2 years out of school, I mean, to Drew's point, that's when you're most valuable, right? And that's when you need to start calling in chips, calling in markers. But if you did that legwork early while you were still in school, saying hello to people,
but even Gene, it's even before then. I get on Javin with his son. Collect the content now. Oh, yeah. Get it early. Like, it's never too early. That's one of the commandments. But get on it early, because you greatly regret, I wish I would have had it. I'd rather have it and not have to use it than not have it and miss it.
Yeah. Well, this is basically as live as it can get with Drew and I. So my comeback to him is, you have to move what's true and authentic to you. So we're not suggesting you post every day, you tell me what you're eating, you tell me you gotta, how you get down is your story. And that's MVP material. Now, if you happen to be really good at something else and you're telling your story, the natural organic connections to life will manifest. But the hustle game now is on you. It's not sitting back, being a cool, chill guy, waiting for everybody to come to you. The hustle now is stepping to folks with your game plan, with your strategy, with your story. So, always, it's like when keeping it real goes bad, right? We ain't see, but you gotta know when you're your true, authentic self. Hopefully, that's not you being a criminal. But if you're your true, authentic, and even if it's that, you still got a story to tell. You might just be telling it from a different spot, though. Because I'm just telling you, everybody that's walking this earth, you have a story to tell. And how you tell that story matters. But when it's true and authentic, it ain't getting, especially now, because we can all look up if what you're saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
If you go look up 1984 National Championship and I ain't got my picture, I mean, hey, Drew, your man's in them. Right?
Some ain't adding up.
Some ain't adding up. What you get?
Because they're going to check. They're going to check.
And then when you get
to... Right now, people are going to check now who G. Smith to see is there, and they're going to see that he got all his fouls every game.
So no. But then, go ahead.
So what I want to do is, man, I'm going to tell you something funny that I want to pass to the left, man. I can remember thinking about all of this. Georgetown was so well branded, bro. I thought I was going to hoop at Georgetown, man, after watching. I didn't even know what Georgetown was. I had the blue and gray is still my colors to this day. It's probably from Georgetown. That's usually my color combo. It's crazy. I got on red. I was at my son's game, but
you see what I got on, though, don't you?
Yeah, I see you.
Hey, Javin.
You on brand, yeah.
First time I met G, I used to tell him,
yeah.
Gray Heather.
Yeah.
Gray Heather T. Woo!
Yeah. Oh, underneath the jersey, bro. I tell my son, boy, don't go out there without a shirt underneath your thing, man. Like a naked chicken, man. That was from there. So left, take us there, man. I know you had some NIL questions and all that left, man, and where things are going, man. Let's jump back into that piece right there, left.
No doubt. So you guys are familiar with the grassroots market in AAU basketball, am I correct?
Yes.
All right. So how do you feel about the shoe brands consolidating the grassroots market like Adidas Gauntlet and Nike EYBL? What's your take on that?
I'm not too familiar with that and deeply. I just have a problem with that whole system as a whole because it's dirty. The brands are able to get in, get out. It's manipulative. They could be using that same manipulation to get some computer programs and other things that embed in these kids. But it's a meat market. I'm a hooper. I'm not a hooper, but Gene can talk sort of deeply in it. I worked it from a sort of professional standpoint, but it's a dirty game, and the sneaker companies are acting like they're innocent, but they're as dirty as they get. They're just behind the curtain.
Mm.
I think game is getting younger, right? It's just getting younger. And what's interesting about that is college basketball is getting older because cats can come back 900 times. The NBA is getting younger. I mean, there was actually an NCAA team that was older. Their average age was older than the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Wow.
That's bananas. So that's the world we're in. But to Lefty's question, brands coming in, that's just the state of doing business. That's standard operating procedures. What I always tried to impress upon cats in the grassroots space is what Drew alluded to earlier, partnerships. Why are you going to let these people keep coming up in your house, right, with a new person each and every time, with a new idea and boom, 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 with ideas and moving and maybe there's a collaborator in the hood on the street that they work with. but is he really the right person? Because the more things change, the more they stay the same. There's a responsibility on the grassroots side, the people in our community thinking as one. Co-op. Don't matter if I'm east, west, north side, south side. We need to be talking to each other about these dudes because we have the talent.
Well, people talk about owning a professional team. I don't understand why we don't just run the AAU circuit, develop our own league, and leverage all of them throughout the country. Then you have a better conversation with the brands than them dealing with us isolated in Chicago, New York, and these individual markets. And the kid ends up losing.
Everywhere I go, I just harken back to the time I played pro-am towards the back nine of my floundering hoop career. And New York City basketball embraced me. And so I got my chance to play at the Rucker. And ironically enough, it was against the Chicago team that traveled through. It was on ABC Wild World of Sports. It was bananas. But it was at Rucker. It was the Chicago crew from the I don't know what side, but I
know exactly what game you're talking about.
Okay, so but that was a culture moment. That was a neighborhood moment. We can produce those things ourselves now. And the brand can be a partner, but the brand don't need to be running it.
That can even be on the AAU level, on the youth level. We have all the kids. People talking about owning a professional team. We could run the youth circuit, so to speak, and not do it in an abusive way, but in a way that making sure the kids get the most, developing an ecosystem, leveraging and having some educational sort of components, some branding components, some emotional intelligence components. So we're really leveraging the sport to elevate our kids versus getting into it in Monty Bates or other situations where once reality hits and your game ain't showing up, the love ends.
Yeah.
You're a regular civilian, homie. Come on over here with me. And that's a hard crash when you've been built up. But that's the way the system is sort of set up now.
Yeah. I mean, we have a questionnaire that we give to a student athlete, an NBA guy, your son, Javin. It's basically 10 or 12 questions that you need to ask yourself about yourself before you talk to anybody. Because if you don't know these things about yourself, how you going to talk to somebody? You can't tell your story. I could not articulate to you what Georgetown basketball meant to you while I was younger, while I was up in it. I didn't know what was going on. I just know we were getting booed. I knew we always say we play. Our motto in our locker room, we play to beat the cheat. So we know you're going to be cheating on us.
Javin.
Yeah.
I met the cats that play, Michael Graham, Wingate, Reggie. Mm-hmm. These cats do not know the impact that they had on Black America.
Man.
They have no idea.
Man, y'all don't know how many cats.
Gene only knows because he moved to New York and he was in the sneaker industry. Those cats do not know the impact they had on all of America. Obviously, we didn't have the internet and different things. So they weren't thinking about their brands. Like they still should be leveraging the moment and signing autographs and all of that. But there's been so many years of gaps and so many sort of dynamics. It's just sad. We don't want that to happen anymore.
I just want to drop this on this esteemed panel. Nike's running a commercial on Coach K. And it's one of those where it's one of those Nike, emotional kind of joints where they're saluting Coach K in his career, and it's, got the opera music playing in the background, goosebumps. When Big John passed away, I'm still waiting on something. When I'm going to get that? And again,
Hey, Gene, I'll even take it further. You ready, Jav and Lefty?
Yeah.
We're talking NIL. Georgetown gave Nike that hood pass.
Yes. Yes.
None of those cats, and some of the cats on that team are struggling. They benefited from none of that.
Mm. Mm.
Think about that.
So Lefty,
that was before Jordan.
That brings me full circle back to Lefty. We, meaning our grassroots efforts, should be about owning our communities and owning the hoop and our culture, owning that and partnering up with these brands versus sponsorships, whatever, versus one guy eating. I want anybody that got a program in Chicago eating on some level.
But Gene, the problem is that we have the same mentality that we had with slavery. The colonists went over there. They paid one cat to help gather the other cats. One dude got paid. They got on the ship, and we killed our whole community. I mean, that's where it sort of starts. That's the same thing that happens from a hoop perspective. Instead of looking at the whole system, cats like, if I can get a bag, that's all I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And speaking on that Georgetown thing, that was organically created. Like people seeing it on TV. A lot of young hoopers across America accepted it, liked it, like me and Javin did.
No, but Big John Gates did that
and
too.
it was organically driven. It wasn't a marketing plan with it or anything.
No.
Whereas today, there you can manipulate it. You can manipulate it and make the people like it.
But if you look at it, really, there's only one signature brand that's really worked.
Jordan.
That's it. AI should have a better brand than Jordan. And unfortunately, Reebok failed him, but his brand should be twice as big as Jordan's because he has the appeal within the culture and on the court. Mike's just sort of relevant on the court. Chuck Taylor, but I mean, he was a sales guy. You really wasn't selling his story. That was the only hoop shoe, so to speak. I'm talking from storytelling, connecting with culture, global. AI should be it, but it didn't happen. But Mike is the other ones, they come and go, but no, there's nothing really memorable there.
Yeah.
And there's been periods of Fab Five.
I'm an East Coast cat.
In Vegas.
Okay. Why didn't AI go?
Reebok isn't a storytelling brand. Reebok was coming off being a women's fitness brand and jumped on basketball because it wasn't part of their purpose, which we'll jump in. I think AI could have been a little bit more committed. But really, respectfully, I think he could have been a little bit more committed. But none of the brand, that's what separates Nike. And I'm not just saying that because I work there. Not only they get the product right and they connect with culture, but they tell stories. They're not just trying to be up. Don't get me wrong, that's part of it. They're revenue generating. But the storytelling, I've been at other brands and they don't value that. Yeah. They're high-fiving if they're up 20%, but they don't realize you still got to sell through this. Yeah. And if you're not creating emotional connections, have that be advertising, events, retail, packaging, website, all those dynamics, you're going to fall short because people are buying feelings. They're not buying cotton and rubber. They're buying the feelings that you sort of create. And obviously the designs, and you want to be in those epic moments like Mike was, and all that stuff comes together, but it's preparing for what you don't know is going to happen. They didn't know Mike was going to do all that, but they prepared like it was going to happen.
And hey, Drew, look, because this for you too, Gene. Let me ask both of y'all this, man. We're doing this brand I am thing, man. You guys are not only touching, the up and coming athletes, but I think what I struggle with as being a cat 40 plus, still on the marketing side of things, Lefty and I still on the creative side of things. This is my question. Like all the stuff you described, Drew, like the storytelling and a lot of that stuff is done in a different way. Like basketball, Gene, is played in a different way. I had to really go relearn the game to teach my kids to be good, man. It's different moves. There's a different rhythm to it, right? And so my question, Drew, and I know we've talked about this some, but us collaborating, you said partnerships. How do we collaborate with the new dope, and where are they? The new dope creators. I don't know how to even touch base, how to get at these cats, because I know we have something to bring to them from what you guys are doing, an organizational standpoint. This is how it runs on this high level and all that. but it seems they so entrepreneurial and so out here, bro.
I think one of the most incredible things that's going on within the sneaker game, because apparel's a little bit easier, no disrespect, but from a footwear standpoint, it's a bit more challenging. We have a coworker, Dwayne Edwards, has a footwear design school called Pencil. Mm-hmm. And they're actually combining with a former historically black college out of Detroit that closed called Lewis. And they're opening up, and it's all tuition free. And it's giving people of color opportunity to be able to learn how to actually build footwear and learn the business side. It's not just a design school. I think capsules like that, and that's more than a capsule, will help us start integrating. So we're thinking bigger than just working for brands or being consumers, that I can create my brand. But it goes back to what I was talking to Lefty about earlier on. We got to get behind it just that it's black owned. We got to make the best product and tell the best stories and, da-da-da-da-da. But it's coming. It's coming.
And so, Drew, but what about how do we collaborate, and how do we, as some of the older guys in the game with this institutional knowledge, Gene, how do we go about sourcing this talent, connecting with them? Like, I know your stuff, Drew. They light up when they find out your Wu-Tang story. Gene, they gonna light up when they know about the Georgetown stuff and all that, right? But how do we make these sustainable contacts with these young guys?
Well, I think it's speaking. This right here. I think right here, this is it. Like this podcast, I'm working on speaking at universities and colleges and in communities. I've done it on the radio in sort of LA. But first thing is letting folks know what's out there and the opportunity. There's a footwear design school in Pasadena that one of the profs there is a brother that Brown, I'm blanking out on his name right now. He lived in Pasadena, didn't even know it's there. It's like educating and letting them know from a mentorship, apprenticeship style, school-wise, the dynamics that are out there and sessions like this, that if one kid watches this and says, I'm getting in the sneaker industry, you know what I mean? Or I'm going to start my own brand. We've done what we need to do, but we got to continue doing this throughout the globe, not even just here in the U.S.
And to get real basic, Javin, it's real basic for me, because again, I'm a tap on the door, I'm a knock on the door, I'm a kick in the door, right? It can go down in the DM, somebody that's doing something that's organically connects to what you're doing, is starting something yourself, and you may not have everything you need, and you picking up parts as you go along. I started a low budget Zoom series on the Hoya locker room. And, with us having a challenging season, like with a program is under siege right now. My program has been a bright light. And from that, I've been contacted by potential people in apparel to do merchandise. So the more you do, the more intentional you are about what it is you want, that other stuff will come. Drew put a quote out on his, if you don't follow Drew Greer on LinkedIn or Instagram, The Real Uncle Drew, Facebook, you're missing out. But he put something on his joint today, and it basically said, I want to do what I'm meant to do. I'm not interested in doing what I'm not meant to do. So it's almost like if you are intentional, you know what it is you're trying to do, just keep and hit people up where it makes sense. Now, we know it's 2022, and I fall on the anal side in terms of communicating. Like, I'm not going to over-communicate, but I'm certainly not going to under-communicate. And when I say I'm going to hit you back, I'm going to hit you back. That makes me a OG. Most people don't communicate that way, so there's finesse and nuances to it. But my shit is real low budget. Just be intentional and hit those where you see that connection. Hit those where you see collaborative opportunities.
Yeah. So it seems like pairing what we had, man, with what's happening now, we kind of the best of both things. Left, you got another one, man, because what I'm gonna ask these brothers to do as we close out shortly, man, is since they storytellers, Drew, I want a Nike story. I want to feel what it was like up in that piece, and I want to know about being in that locker room since you got Hoya locker room, brother. But Left, you got anything you want to touch on, man?
Man, yeah, I do, man. I got one more question, man, and it's pertaining to hip hop and marketing. Would you consider the hip hop culture one of the greatest marketing tools ever created?
I'm going on mute. You got the right person for that question.
I think it's been leveraged because everything sort of came together. I just hate the word marketing. It is a branding tool. And hip hop is the greatest storytelling component of culture ever. And I think that's what sort of played into it, why it's spread throughout the world. And it's the number one genre in the world. And Nike's one of the better brands that has tapped into it in the most authentic way that's allowed them to position their brand and hit the souls of people throughout the globe.
I want to ask you guys a question pertaining to what Lefty just asked. Have you seen the Capital One commercials with Spike, Samuel Jackson, and Charles Barkley?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's
hip hop, huh?
We talk about Capital One, and so that Lefty, yes, it is the most important thing going. And if anybody tells you anything differently, again,
and that's coming from a DC go-go guy.
All right, I will leave it at that. I'm done. DC go-go. That's me.
So this is what I want to do, man. And, as far as storytelling goes, Drew, why don't you go first, brother? You got a lot of sneakerheads that's gonna be listening in to this podcast. Chicago, you did that piece on footwear culture. If you have not seen, that piece that Drew did on what give me the title of the article again, Drew, on the Chicago contribution.
Oh, the
to
11 reasons the sneaker culture took flight in Chicago.
Yeah, if you haven't peeped that piece, make sure you hit Drew's LinkedIn. He's got it on Facebook. 3 parts. Is so ill and thorough.
You gotta click on the hyperlinks.
Yeah, Drew goes deep. He's a storyteller. But Drew,
But I have to appreciate Lefty and Javin for giving me insight. I'm not a Chicagoan, but I did. I did.
No, you're a digger. But tell us, Drew, give us a story from that time, man, when it came to you to do this, whether it was the rock piece or the Wu-Tang dunks, man, something up from those Nike days, man. And, let's really take it there for the people. What it was like when you knew you were in your bag there, you had made a name for yourself, and I know you was doing fly stuff. Tell us a story and take us back during that time.
I never really felt I made a name for myself. I was digging into culture, man. I was traveling the world, going on these voyages, particularly in the U.S. first, New York, Chicago, and I had homies there from school that I could connect and hit the elbow room in Chicago, you know what I mean? And, get the hip hop scene, but then hit, Tony Sports and Cisco's and the rest of those dynamics to sort of understand it. I need you to get more specific because it's so much like, there's so much that I've done. You want a Chicago story?
I just want a fresh story. These guys know you, man. They know you as the inventor, you know what I'm saying, of bringing the dunks back, man, and doing the Wu-Tang collabs, man.
The inventor. I like that. The
inventor, bro. You know what I'm saying? And brought them back, man. And that's how these young boys, they look at it. So it's
the challenge was like traveling the country and trying to find the commonality because there was no internet there. In Milwaukee, they call Air Force One Dookies. You know what I mean? Versus Uptown. And me being an LA kid, we didn't really wear Air Force Ones like that. So folks can talk all that junk they want in LA. That came sort of later on. Football culture, da-da-da-da. So the beauty of just traveling and eating the foods and understanding the languages that were different. And me being out of pocket. You know what I mean? Everywhere I dropped in, if it's hot Atlanta, New York, Philly, DC, it was completely dynamic. But going to the jeans old hood, all they wear in DC is black sneakers at one point. Things have sort of changed now. They didn't want any color. They didn't want any dynamic.
What they call them out there? Bama's out there or something? Bama's, is that what they call them, Gene?
But that's actually where it originated. Harlem gets all the credit. But really it was Baltimore, the DC area that, and I think part of that also had to do with the colleges as well and having the cross-pollination of cities sort of there. But, Air Force Ones thrived in those sort of markets. But it's like, give me specific. Like, what do you want? Like,
man, give me a Wu-Tang dunk story, bro. Give me a Wu-Tang Dunk story,
I
man.
mean,
Making that
the
connection
Wu-Tang
to
was
collect.
the Wu-Tang piece was interesting because the biggest thing with Nike is they didn't want the problem. They looked at doing a collaboration with individual artists. You wouldn't believe that today as being a problem because if I do one, I got to do others versus it being the right thing to do for the culture. I was looking for ways to tell stories because I didn't have the internet. I didn't have any ways. Product just showed up. It was word of mouth. My deal was how do we, develop some energy around, vintage products and develop another layer. My strategy was always to create rooms. Something's going to get super hot. There's no way you're going to stop people from being able to get in that room. But if you create another room that nobody knows about, you keep yourself hot. You keep things sort of relevant. So that was the strategy with sort of the Wu-Tang piece. Udi, who ran training camp, had the connect, sort of shared this before. We did a limited pair, 100 pair, they kept 50, I kept 50, and we seeded it. And then the internet hit. And once the internet hit, and then skate culture beyond New York skate culture, but the West Coast started jumping on sort of the sneaker play, and then obviously the Japan and the Tokyo piece went on fire. But I ended up getting written up for it. And I've sort of discussed it before. Like I formally got your warning, if you do this one more time, you'll get fired. Like Gene was sort of serious about it as it relates to those dynamics, because Nike wasn't open to actually changing things. They were into doing, we've always done these, things this way. But the culture continued to press it. Now it's part of everyday strategy. And you see what your hometown Kanye is sort of doing, but that's sort of breaking the mold and being able to get after it. But those early efforts would, obviously, but even the early Run DMCs, they didn't have their logo on it. They just were rocking them and sang them in songs. Like that Wu-Tang and that Rockefeller was the initial having the actual logo, and then alphanumerics sort of from a skate standpoint. And that's where they dilute us. Like I was part of starting Nike SB skate, but they gave, a senior person the role to give him the resources to get after it. But going back to sort of lefties, that's where they don't empower us. We'll take it from here. Kind of like Elvis and rock and roll, you know what I mean? Chuck Berry was killing it for a minute, but then they put all their marketing dollars between, behind Elvis, and it became sort of phenomenon, part of sort of pop culture. That's kind of what happens in the sneaker industry. We get in these roles, they won't empower us to give us a department and let us build a team. They just strip us, and then when we get too vocal, they kick us out of the club and bring somebody in that's a little bit more conforming.